To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll open the meeting to public comment for any subject not on the agenda. Any public comment? Mike?
Yeah, just very briefly, I know spring flooding's on everybody's mind. I just kind of prepared this for you very briefly. Thank you, sir. Anyway, this handout here, just possible flooding. Our concerns is like first wave may come in March and April. And there's a best case scenario. Worst case scenario, what can we do? Make sandbags available, encourage residents to clean snow around drains, culverts, driveways. Sandbag, keep water out basements, water wells. Move equipment, hay. Flood prone areas, encourage neighbors to touch each other, especially the elderly, disabled. Those living near streams, rivers, can still purchase FEMA flood insurance. Report flooding to the sheriff's office. It's over the road. On the backside, there's some where to get sandbags. There's also best practices for sandbags. Any questions, sir?
Burt's has a pile of sand. I would assume that that's for sandbags.
That is correct, Bert.
Okay.
There, I think they posted something on Townsend Classifieds that's available sand free to the public. You've got to give a donation to the fire department. You go inside Burt's and there's a can to put some money in there. City Hall has sandbags. All the fire departments have sandbags. You can access those through getting hold of Ed Chandel or any firefighter connection. Any questions? That's just a quick update on where we're at with the flooding situation. I'll be around. We'll be busy this week. Kid next.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Everybody get a copy of it?
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
sure.
may I ask a question? On the day of the meeting where you voted to terminate Julie Lethert, she
Yeah.
had a list of concerns that she wanted answered. Have those been responded to?
I would assume they have, and that's been left to legal.
Some were personal questions to members of the commission. Have they been responded to? And I think the deadline was March 15th.
As far as I know, they've been replied to.
Is there any way we can find out?
I would assume that since that's under litigation, that would all be tied up with litigation.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that the Broadwater County calendar has not been updated since January. Here's a copy of January, February, and March calendar on your new website. It would be extremely helpful for those of us that don't regularly come into Townsend and into the courthouse to be able to find this information online.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Let's see, we have minutes here for March 11, 2019.
Move to approve those as submitted, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to approve minutes of March 11, 2019. Surveyed all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Payroll claims here. In the sum of $171,848.08.
Mr. Chairman, I review the claims and move that we pay the payroll claims.
Second the motion.
Motion been made, second to pay claims and set amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. $245.93.
That claim was for, which was interesting how that worked out. Our crews were working down in the south end of the county and their credit card didn't work to get fuel at the town pump, so the gentleman at the counter graciously paid for it. So our crews could keep on plowing snow and we're reimbursing him, so thanks for that. So I would make the motion that we pay that claim.
Second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to pay claims, said amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Another set of claims in the amount of $108,809.49.
I will move to pay those approved claims in the amount of $108,109.49.
I'll second the motion to approve the claims in the set amount.
Motion been made, seconded to approve claims and set amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Several publications here, one from Rural Montana, the Yulani Electric Cooperative, and also one from Water and Waste Digest. Mail. Inspect to go, cloud-based inspections and permitting. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Consultation with tribes for the Broadwater Hydroelectric Project number 285300. United States Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management. Interest to sell federal oil and gas leases, 35 parcels of federal minerals for future lease sale. Billings, Havre, Miles City, and North Dakota field offices. U.S. Banker Corporate Tax Service Intercap Loan Program, the interest rate from February 16, 2019 through February 15, 2020 to be 3.37%. Business radio licensing. Renewals and modifications. That's it for mail, so we will move to the 1015 Develop Fleet Vehicle Maintenance Management Plan.
Mr. Chairman, I brought that one up for discussion. We have some fleet vehicles, and in the past, when Tammy Rouser worked upstairs in the office where the keys are kept, Dana took care of the vehicles just out of his own good graces. And then when we had Brent on payroll with the solid waste department and Michelle was working up there, he took care of the fleet vehicles just in his own good graces. Well, we don't have that relationship anymore. So we need to, I think, determine parameters for somebody to, just make sure the oil is changed, check the tires, scrape off the snow when we have weather like this, maybe start the vehicles from time to time when it's super cold, because they don't get used a lot. And so I just thought we should have a discussion. It probably should be somebody who is more of a support staff, because we don't want to pay one of our most highly paid employees to do that. So, this is just to start a discussion if they know at this point.
So are we just kinda thinking, a plan for those vehicles? We're not talking about a countywide fleet maintenance program, or are we moving that direction, do you think, or?
I do, I think we should have that countywide anyway. I think the immediate for our fleet, our 2 fleet vehicles, you know, for the whole county, probably that emergency has passed with the weather and spring coming on. But I do think we should start talking about a overarching plan and maybe start small and go from there.
So we're thinking something that could include road department, sheriff. I don't know if Wynn's still here or not. I know he expressed a thought that maybe a fleet management program would benefit you guys at some point. Brandon,
Yeah, I couldn't hardly hear the conversation.
we're just doing a discussion on a overall fleet maintenance management program for all of our county vehicles.
Oh,
And if you feel something like that would benefit you, your department.
so you're referring to like have someone change the oil within the county?
Eventually to that point, we may get to there. Right now, it's just, we're focusing on the vehicles that, like the extension and use in health department. At this point, I think, is what we're focusing on. But that could expand
I mean,
later on.
I think we would look into it if it would save us money. I think right now we have a pretty good management plan just because the officers are in their cars every day and take care of their scheduling and things like that. And they need tires, and talk to us, so it's, I guess I'd have to sit down and
Sure.
see exactly what you guys are looking at, but,
Right?
yeah, right now I think ours is pretty good plan outside of, you know, if we're looking at something, cut some costs and save some money.
Sure. Mary, for you, I know a lot of times your guys are doing the maintenance when they probably should be out on the roads, right? So I'm guessing that a plan like that could be beneficial for you as well.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right.
So if we could maybe have a working meeting and bring all the players together and talk about maybe how we can put something together, I think that would be beneficial and fiscally
Sure.
responsible.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
You know, another thing maybe we could do there too is maybe have Mike and Eric do a walkthrough on those right now. So we can make sure that we can get them in and out of the lot. Before, if somebody has them going somewhere, make sure we got batteries charging while we're trying to get this in line, so we can have those ready to go for those people.
I would ask that we do Eric, just again, Mike is highly technical and highly paid. Because of that technical knowledge that he brings, I think this is probably not, I think it's below his pay grade.
Okay.
So I'd like to see somebody who's paid more for that kind of work to do that kind of work rather than shoot for the highest
Sure.
or one of the highest paid. But yeah, perhaps Eric is a good one for that, especially in the interim. And we should probably work through Mike, since he is under Mike. One thing we used to have, and I don't know if we will again, but seasonal like mowers for the weeds. Somebody who's seasonal, perhaps a teacher or a high school student who's taking shop class would be a good fit for checking out the vehicles and keeping up on that. Somebody who's very part-time. Give them a couple more hours.
Mr. Chair. We just want to let you guys know, Sergeant Buck is actually our fleet manager. He's tasked, one of his tasks is making sure that all the recalls are met and everything's up to speed. So since I was on the phone with Lewis and Clark County, I missed part of it, but that's what one of Jamie's jobs is the fleet management from our side. So just so you know.
Perfect.
Okay, I guess we can go on to the, close the commissioners' meeting and open the public hearing for the increase in solid assessment fee. The resolution that hereby resolved on this 18th day of March 2019 by the Broadwater County Commissioners of Broadwater County, by the Board of County Commissioners of Broadwater County, to increase the solid waste assessment from $128 to $185. Open for public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something before we get started.
Okay.
I know this is gonna be a big topic, and it's a little bit emotional, but I'd like everybody to keep your comments factual, not let your emotions play into it, and that they be respectful. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to address the issue or the question of, somebody has told me that you want to close the dumpsters at Raidersburg. I'd like you to consider the fact that most of the people in Raidersburg are elderly, disabled or semi-disabled, and we quite frankly can't afford $15 to bring our trash to town and then pay to dump it. When people dump whole dump truck loads of stuff in those dumpsters, that's not right. And with that in mind, I'd like to suggest that you keep the dumpsters open and install cameras there. You can make more money sending this guy after guys on that camera that dump trucks in fines and other costs to where people like us can still dump our trash. This is a big concern because it involves a lot of money for people that don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know, Jen, I guess maybe for the record, so that Janaea knows
Yeah.
everybody's name, if you could state your name, please.
My name is Dave Standish.
Any other comment? Yes, sir.
My name's Butch McGee. I don't think cameras are a way to go because they're gonna get shot out. I think that they need to go after the contractors, the ranchers. The dumpsters are for household garbage. There's fence posts, there's twine. That big dairy out there dumps plastic by the loads in there off of their feed piles. Branches, people will not get a $5 burn permit to burn their own branches at their place. I get one every year, even if I don't use it. And they fill these dumpsters up with everything. It's not the household people are the ones that are gonna pay for this.
Yeah.
We're gonna drive 26 miles to get rid of our garbage now because a commercial business is the ones, there's contractors, farmers, and ranchers all dumping stuff in there They dump their washers, dryers, whole dump truck loads of stuff in there. Every week, I see them. And it's not right. To close these dumpsters up there is not right. They need to do something, either put a man there or put a day there when you can dump. I don't care. It's not right that we have to drive 26 miles to dump our garbage. It's our money that pays them garbage taxes.
Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Bobby Hicks, and there are people that are coming from Bozeman, Three Forks, and other places that have big truckloads of stuff that they dump in our dumpsters up there. I live right next to the dump, and I see it. And I probably pay more taxes than most of them do. I have a big branch. So, I mean, yeah, our twine goes in there because we don't have any place, you can't burn unless you have a burning permit, and when you have a burning permit, it's from this time till that time that you can burn. And that just makes our ranches a mess. I mean, and there's a lot of people that don't pick up after themselves. You're gonna find on the roads, there's gonna be trash all over. Who's gonna pick that up?
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It is.
Who is gonna pick that up? It's already bad.
Yeah.
Even with the dumpsters up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary
Yes,
Kay
Nikki?
Becker, I guess my concern is, how is all this gonna be cost efficient?
What was that question?
How is getting rid of the Raidersburg dump gonna be cost efficient to the county?
And we're gonna have an opportunity to address these questions you guys are asking
Okay.
when you're done.
Nick?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments related to the solid waste. First of all, it doesn't appear in all of the options that were made available in the document posted online, which appears to have been done sometime around the 6th of March. So it's only been online for about 10 days. Rather difficult to find it on your website, but nonetheless, it doesn't appear that there was a privatization or a request for proposal for an independent contractor or a private contractor to come in and provide services for the county. Maybe they're more expensive, but I think it's an option that we should have at least explored before an option was put forth. Also too, I don't see that the board minutes for the January 22nd Solid Waste Board is online anywhere. Again, I'm not sure where to access those because the website was put out as the place to find everything related to Broadwater County. So I didn't find that online. The only documents that I can find are the ones that were loaded. So it seems a little fishy. In order to find additional information, I did find a list of solid waste board members, but again, had to do quite a bit of digging. But there's no board chair listed, there's also no secretary listed, and there's no dates for meetings and times listed, much less any. So it's very difficult to fully address all of these issues since we can't have complete information. The amount of fees increased is 44.5% per household. Now, based on the 19-page document loaded, it appears that there are approximately 2,400 households in the county that are going to be assessed the solid waste fee. Is that number correct? Is it high, is it low? I have no way to verify that information. Again, this is just some math off of the numbers that were published in that document. Have we considered a step implementation of these? The way it's proposed, it's a pretty harsh line in the sand. I think there are ways that we could potentially implement some of this in steps, see what the cost savings are, and then decide where we need to go from there. In the documents provided online, for the modified option 4, it was for the proposal for option 4, this was the non-modified version. There's a list of expenses in there for gates that are solar powered and key card access. It's for $70,000. But yet the expenses for normal gates, with attendance, so you're increasing your head count, was actually $17,000 more than the key card proposal from what I can see online. So I don't know if we're getting incomplete information to try to draw these conclusions as citizens. You know, it just seems a little weird that we wouldn't consider a key card because you have access to the gates 24/7. Every household gets a card. You see when these people came in, when they left. So if there's an issue with something that's unapproved in the containers, we should be able to look at the key cards and figure out who was there between the times that it wasn't there versus the times it was reported. Now you have a much narrower group of people to look at for potential dumping violations. You also eliminate the issue of the 24/7 access, because with the key cards, the gates then would be available to any of the residents 24/7. The last thing I would like to ask is, were there any modifications to the dumpsters proposed? Some of the things that you can do are to cover the containers and put what's called a modified through-the-wall trash compactor chute. This would eliminate the size or give restrictions on the size of the items being placed into the dumpsters. There's different ways that you can adjust the dumpsters to allow for the full dumpster to be used. But also too, I would like to ask, I realize that there's an issue with electricity at the sites, but figuring out a way to compact this, you can get anywhere from 3 to 5 times your occupancy on your containers versus just loose household garbage. So I think that there's some things that we failed to consider that would make a big impact before you spend that much more money, and before as taxpayers we spend that much more money. So I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr.
Shirley?
Chairman, prior to this time, throughout the county, all of your county budgets have had to been cut. Employees have been cut. Everyone was asked to cut at least 10% out of their budget. Now, a solid line item is going to be increased by 44.5%. Where does that compute to? We're cutting back and not having as many employees, and we don't have any money, and all of a sudden we as taxpayers are going to get to pay the extra. And I have another question about businesses in town. Currently, on my tax statement, we already paid double what residents pay. Is that going up 44.5% too? And has there been, in the city garbage pickup, has there been an increase of the amount of garbage picked up? Because there's an amazing amount of alley traffic, and my dumpster is full of things that I didn't put there. Thank you.
Dave?
Dave Klaus. I think a phased approach should be looked at, not only in implementation of the increased fees, but also in the implementation of the changes to the canister stations. Pick one that's been a big, a lot of trouble, and try the changes there. See what works, doesn't work. Don't just do a wholesale thing and disrupt people's lives. Not having the canister station in town open on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, is a big inconvenience for those of us that are trying to maintain our homes, and that stuff needs to get to the grass bin or the limbs bin, especially for people that work in health. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Sue Allen. We have a place in Raidersburg, and I guess they said that the Toston dumpster only gets about half the usage. So obviously the problem is at Raidersburg, I'm guessing, because no one's around to see. It's out of the sight, out of mind. And how about the people in Rolling Glen, south of Folkford's? I know they all dump there. Aren't they supposed to go to Logan? I mean, I assume that's what they're supposed to. I pay garbage in 3 different counties. Will I have the option to take it off my taxes? I don't want their damn card. Will I have that option? I'll haul my garbage to Three Forks. I already pay there, and in Madison County I pay. I mean, I don't even have a problem with the fee increase. I have a problem for the inconvenience for most of the people that live up there. And the problem with the people from those subdivisions that this county allowed Why don't they have a dumpster out there for their own use? I just think that's who's taking advantage of the dumpster up at Raidersburg, is all those subdivisions down by Three Forks. I know it is.
It is.
Whether it be construction, waste, or
Yeah.
whatever. Here it
Exactly.
comes.
And I have a place
Exactly.
in Three Forks, but I see it. Just like Bobby. I mean, we're by there, I see it all the
I
time.
see it go by every day.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen 8x8
So I don't
slabs
think
of
you should-
concrete in that dumpster.
I don't think it
Yeah.
should be the people that aren't abusing it that have to pay for it.
Yeah,
That's
we're
a
gonna be
dump
the
truck.
ones to suffer.
Yeah.
Well, it's close
If
to
we can,
Logan.
please address everything to the commission, please.
Excuse me, sir.
Any other comments? Okay, we will close the public hearing and move to the decision to increase the solid waste assessment fee. Mary, perhaps you could address some of those concerns.
You bet. So I'll get into it more as we get into the plan. But one thing that we did look at is so I'm just gonna give you a little bit of background. Part of my experience with DEQ solid waste was looking at the financial assurance requirements for facilities. And they were required to look at and calculate the increase based on inflation every year to make sure that they had enough money in their financial assurance mechanism if they close. So I'm very familiar, I'm just very familiar with financial inflation calculators. So one thing that I did do was I looked at various inflation calculators to look at if you had a good or service that you paid for in 2001 for $128, what that would cost you in today's money. And every calculator that I looked at, and I looked at several different calculators that are available online. But what I came up with is based on inflation since 2001, the cost of goods or services that were $128 in 2001 would cost between $183 and $185 in today's money. So because we have a deficit, and because the fee has not been increased in 18 years, I felt it was necessary to look at and factor in inflation to today and what it is, what it's costing to manage solid waste in the county. So, and that is attached to this report. And we don't have, part of the, what people might consider a disparity between Gallatin County, Lewis and Clark County, and Broadwater County is we do not have the economy of scale in Broadwater County. We simply don't have the population here to support those same services in these other counties. So they can charge less to their county residents because they have more people. So that cost is spread out among more people than we have in the county. And that's, that's another thing. I don't know that we've considered that in the past. So.
Mary, you have a board, correct? You've been
Yes.
working with your board on this decision.
Yes. Mhm.
I do have two letters here that I should have read in the last. I'll read these now. This is from Brian and Tiana Feller. My wife are going to be unable to attend the meeting discussing the future of canister sites. We are residents of Winston and want to express that our desire would be for the operation of the canister sites to remain as close to the status quo as possible. We understand that there is a financial aspect to make this possible. We also understand that the tax for county waste has not been increased for times as such. We fully support a reasonable inflation-based increase to our assessment in order to maintain current services. Sincerely, Brian and Tiana Feller. This is a letter from Tom Williams, Commissioners. I'm disappointed in the decision to close the Raidersburg dumpster site, which is so important to the people in this area. The article in the paper said it would save $42,000 per year, but would cost $85,000 annually to keep the plant running. This does not seem feasible to me, nor does the 50% increase of the solid waste fees in the first year. Some tax increase is necessary. 50% in 1 year is a lot. There seems to be a problem with people from the south end of the county using their Raidersburg Toston dumpsters. This indicates a need for a dumpster site in the south end of the county. Get these people on the tax rolls and satisfy the need. They were not taxed for this in the past because only a few people were there, but now there are thousands. Get the money and make the solid waste system viable. We are a farm and ranch community here, and some of our waste is different from normal household waste. We have net wrap, twine, and some shop waste, filters, etc. to dispose of. We need to have a place for this material to go. Burning this material at home is not suitable these days. I would like to see the Raidersburg dump site remain open. Sincerely, Tom Williams. So is there any other discussion on the issue of increasing the solid waste assessment fee?
I guess in my mind, I mean, we're looking at two separate issues, but are intertwined, are kind of related, so. The increase is to cover is also to cover your operating costs.
Yes, right now at $128 per assessment, it does not cover the cost of operations.
Okay. All right, and also, I mean, our solid waste program is operating in a deficit at this point,
Yes, it's
right?
operating in deficit, and solid waste, the solid waste fund is an enterprise fund.
Mhm.
And with that being said, the only thing that money can be used for is solid waste management in the county. Right now, we get about $373,000 in assessments. It costs around $500,000 to manage solid waste in the county, where we are today. And so the fee increase not only took inflation into account, but also would give us the ability to establish a capital improvement fund. Because right now, what we don't have is a CIP. And if there were any issues with the equipment that we have up there is old. The transfer trailer is beaten up. The excavator is old. We have spent money this fall making the necessary repairs that were never made to that equipment prior to my coming on board with the county. And those are ultimately safety issues that you know I feel are very important. I need to be sure that staff are driving, you know, the equipment is safe to operate. And so, you know, part of the purpose of a capital improvement fund is to purchase additional infrastructure. So we have canisters that are rotting at the base. They're old and they're just worn out. Right now, I don't have any means to purchase new canisters. We don't have the means or the ability to purchase a new transfer trailer. You know, if something else were to happen to the excavator or the loader or any other piece of equipment up there, you know, we're looking at, I couldn't even tell you what it would cost to make repairs, additional repairs to anything. So that would give us the ability to plan for the future, you know, determine the direction that we needed to go with solid waste in this county, and then be sure that we had the money to do that.
So I guess, you know, as the old saying is, hindsight's 20/20, right?
Right.
And obviously, this issue should have been addressed a long time ago prior to now,
Yes,
as far as for the way it was being operated
right,
and managed.
right.
So we find ourselves in this situation where we have this to deal with. And I know that we can't continue to operate in a deficit. That's not good business practice, for one thing. So in my mind, I mean, we need to, at this point, I'm separating out the financial portion versus the needs of our residents, and that's something that we'll discuss.
Mhm.
in this our next discussion. But to answer some of the questions that were raised, as long as we're talking about money, I did a little bit of research just on my own, because I had the same questions of what it would cost to bring in a commercial outfit to pick up trash. And so I just used some information I got from the folks that over at Lazy HM Estates, what they're paying, because there's several of them over there that have pickups once a month. So they're paying, let's see. They're paying $18.50 a month, is what they're paying. And that's within a 35-mile radius of Helena. So that's $220 a year that they're paying. And all they get is what goes in that little blue
Yes.
canister to get picked up. It's 44 miles from Helena to Toston, so I think it's reasonable to assume that if people were to have a pickup service out there, it would be probably closer to $20 a month rather than the $18.50, considering, you know, the distance they have to drive and what their operating costs are. And I think the thing that's important to remember about the pickup service, those folks are in business to make money, right?
Yes.
And with us, we're just trying to cover our costs and provide the best service we can for our folks. So at $20 a month, that's gonna be $240 a year that the folks on that area would have to pay. And then, so, that just kinda gives you an idea of where we're at, what we're asking for, and what it could potentially cost them if that was the direction that they wanted to go. Also, I think in your plan you addressed folks from the south end of the county. If they wanted to use our site, they can purchase
Yes,
a tag, right?
they can, yes.
Okay, so that would enable them to pay.
Yes, and we have had a few people pay the assessment, the annual assessment,
Right,
to have that ability to dump at Toston, for instance.
sure. Okay. And I think also one of the things that we'll probably discuss later, but it's important at this point to know from a revenue standpoint, as we implement this plan, a lot of this trash is gonna be diverted, right? That would normally go into the dumpster, like the metal and the
Yes.
wood and all these different things.
Yes,
Which saves us money from the tipping fee
Yes.
aspect. But also give us the opportunity to take those things that are diverted up to our transfer station and receive that fee that these folks are talking about,
yes,
right?
yes.
That they would have to pay. And I talked with a lot of folks out in the Raidersburg, Tossin area, and some of the comments were that they're willing to pay that little bit of extra for their ag waste or whatever that would be. And it's my understanding also that the attendants would have the ability to accept those fees at the site, is that right?
Or charge
Or
them.
they would charge
and
it.
would be billed.
It would be charged and
Yes.
billed later on.
Yes,
So there are options
Yes.
for that.
yes.
Sir?
So, anyway, I know that some of the folks out there that said they're willing to pay extra don't speak for everybody. So I wanna make that clear.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Would it be feasible for these people that wanna dump all their wood and trees and stuff, would it be feasible to, dig a big burn hole where people could burn that stuff?
I think Mary is looking at opening up a burn site down in Tossin. She has to go through the DEQ process to do that.
If
So-
they did
So
that,
we'd have that
the
ability to do that.
metal and stuff could be pulled out regularly
Right.
and recycled, you know?
Well, that's our hope, that we would have the opportunity to divert that at the site when folks come, that they can actually put their metal in a separate canister versus, so it's not all mixed up, so that we can,
Well, that'd
Do-
save a lot of room for trash.
sure, and then we can do the recycling, because the metal recycling still does make us money.
It does.
So-
Yes.
So, those things are being looked at. Yes.
I have one question, and I have nothing against these people at all. Is the Amish, I mean, they go up there and they got trailer loads of garbage. I was wondering, do they pay also, or do they not?
Well, I would assume that once we implement this new plan, they're gonna have to pay, same as everybody else.
Well, they should be, they
You know what I'm
should
saying?
have.
That's
yeah.
gonna be the advantage of having
Yeah.
a tenant there on site,
Mhm.
that they're gonna be able to collect those payments that we're not getting right now. And I guess I think in my mind, as we move forward, this plan starts to come together, we're gonna see the benefit of it. You know, right now, we're all speculating, and we're trying to look into the future with our crystal ball, and we're just making our best guess. I think it's important to note that as this plan starts to take effect, that it's gonna be flexible. I mean, it's not gonna be hard. I know Mary's is willing to make those adjustments, and I think as the commission, we're willing to make those adjustments as this plan goes forward. And so I guess that's kind of some of my thoughts on that.
If we go through this with this increase, is there a, Lewis and Clark County has reduced their fees like for the last 3 years in a row, have they? So is there a once we get this thing back online where it's supposed to be, we're charging everybody, is there a chance for this fee to be lowered?
Potentially, you know, I think that what, and we have talked about it sort of on the surface, in solid waste board meetings, is I think this is something, because it has been so many years since the fee has been adjusted, I think that the board needs to look at costs versus, you know, fees versus costs every 3 to 5 years, say, and make a determination as to whether or not they're adequate. If they're more than adequate, can we make some adjustments downward?
Sure. So really, I mean, the main focus that I think we need to concentrate right on now is getting our program solvent, so it's not operating in a deficit. And once we do that, we can look into things such as a key card type system, once we get going that way. But I think right now, at this point, gates and attendance is our least expensive option. So, okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a
Yes.
question? Throughout this conversation, there's been something about perhaps the southern part of the county aren't paying their assessment? Maybe the Amish are? Is that true? Are the people out on the flats that have new homes, are they being assessed? Are we gathering all the money that we could be gathering, or are there some people who are not paying?
Well, yeah, we have a major problem with the Department of Revenue and who's getting assessed what, where. The other problem is that if you build your house, like you move in your house in November, you get that whole next year for nothing.
I know that, but some of these houses have been there more than 6 or 8 months.
Some of them been there for a long time, but that's.
We need to address that perhaps before we just, those of us who are already paying, the increase.
And we have looked into that repeatedly with the Department of Revenue.
Dig a little deeper, please.
Yes, Nikki?
I do have one comment, and I wanted to clarify Commissioner Buckford's statement on private trash collection. And I can see that it would be between $18 and $20 a month. But we're also talking about a low-density area, so that they are not picking up at every household along every stop. We're also talking about when a third party comes in and collects the waste, they are responsible for the hauling and the disposal of it, which means that if we turn this over to a private company and ask them to bid the waste removal for households within the county, then we don't have to deal with equipment, we don't have to deal with labor, because it goes away. It goes to the third party and they're responsible for it, whether they haul it to Helena, whatever. Now you've got the city of Helena or the Logan landfill dealing with the equipment costs for their packers, their tippers, their loaders. You don't have that. So I'm just, again, super disappointed in the fact that it doesn't appear that there was a private option looked at.
I'd like to say one thing, Mickey. So it's funny how we implement one thing and we find another problem. So here's something that popped up this winter down in the south end. The folks that have the service, and they roll their little blue canister out to the end of the driveway. Guess where they put it? They put it on the county road. So now our crews come along, they can't plow the snow off the road because there's this blue canister in the way. So obviously we have to address that through this company, that it's not placed on the county road, but
Absolutely.
so
I spent 17
that's
years
how these things happen.
with a company, and we were private solid waste company. We
Mhm.
were publicly traded. There's all sorts of things that happened, and they were region specific due to snow, due to rain, due to flooding. We had very specific incidences when we worked in New York City. We had to do buildings specifically. So there's lots of options. I'm not saying that it's one or the other. I'm just saying I'm kind of disappointed that it wasn't something that was looked at as part of the proposal. Again, I'm not opposed to the raise in the fees. I think 44.5% is a little abrupt for 1 year, particularly when we haven't phased in any of these other options. That's all.
Yeah. I think another thing too that some folks don't know is that the people on the south end of the county were given the opportunity to be in our solid waste district, and they opted out. And so that was their decision. But I do think that if that was something that we all agreed would be beneficial for us in our program, we would approach them again and see if they would like to be involved in it. So those are certainly options that we can explore.
Another, if I can address that comment also, another thing to note is that the Public Service Commission regulates garbage hauling in the state of Montana. And in Broadwater County, we have one company that's approved to haul in Broadwater County, and that is Tri-County Services. So if we were to have someone else come into the county, they would have to petition with the Public Service Commission to get approval to operate in our county. So it's not that we didn't consider that. That option is available for people if they want it, but it's only through Tri-County Sanitation.
Yes, sir.
Dan Pate. Have you had Tri-County give you a bid?
For solid waste services? No, we haven't. We haven't. They will go and collect and pick up.
But they've not
They've
bid
got
the
other
county.
options?
Sure they do, but we just signed an interlocal agreement with Lewis and Clark County for waste disposal last fall. And we're tied into that contract for 3 years. And if we get out of that contract, we have to pay for 3 years worth of waste.
I mean, when you signed that contract, did you ask Tri-County?
No, because, we did. So prior to me coming on board with the county put out a request for proposal for solid waste disposal services. And Tri-County and Lewis and Clark County both responded. Tri-County's bid was incomplete. So it didn't meet the minimum qualifications of the bid package. So what we decided to do then is we had to basically throw that out, simply throw it out.
And I have one other question. I know you get your cardboard picked up by Steel Etc.
No, we don't.
Not anymore?
Not anymore.
Because I know that they give more money for steel and everything else than Pacific, so I work with them every day.
And Steel Etc. is gonna come and crush our metal pile. They are gonna do it. They would give us the same price as Pacific. Right now, metal prices are really low. If they have to come on site and crush it, we get $50 a ton. That's all we get.
But they come and, our metal goes to the Lewis and Clark landfill and gets separated there.
No, it doesn't. We
I'm just
we separate our metal. We do. We get out as much metal out of the canisters as we safely can. I don't want them walking in the garbage, but we get out as much metal as we can, and it goes into our metal pile at the transfer station. And both Pacific and Steel Etc. will come up and crush out the metal. I'm just looking at who's going to give us the better price.
Exactly, and
For
that's
the
why,
metal.
I deal with Jimmy
Yes.
all the time, and,
They were supposed to be up
he-
about a month ago, and I haven't heard from them yet, so
Yeah, it's
I'm
been a
gonna
little
give them,
cold.
it has.
I mean,
And we've
I
had
got
a little
call on
snow.
piece of equipment, and
Yes.
it's been a little cold, and
Yes.
everybody's been fighting it. So
Right, exactly. So what I've done, I don't, because of what it was costing us to go down and get the baled cardboard from Bob's and bring it back to the site, I just said, we're not gonna do that anymore. For what we get for the cardboard, it's not worth it. So Bob's does that. Bob's has a contract with Steel, et cetera, they just deal with it. So we don't have that expense anymore. So we haul our own cardboard into Pacific. They give us the best price we can.
Okay.
I am looking at a couple of different ways to manage that.
And I'm gonna be seeing Jimmy tomorrow, and I may say, hey, what can you do? Is that okay?
That's fine. I'm gonna give him a call this afternoon. It is on
Okay.
my list of to-dos. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's totally fine.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Mike, a
Yes.
quick question. If this, assuming that y'all pass this fee increase, how soon will that get the deficit covered?
I'm hoping, I'll just knock on wood, what I'm really hoping is that we resolve the deficit by 2021. It won't happen overnight because I'm gonna go into fiscal year 20, which starts July 1st, with a deficit again. I'm operating in a deficit mode right now. I do have fees coming in May, but it's not enough to cover the deficit plus cost of operations because we're still operating right now. We can't just stop managing solid waste in the county.
So you've actually
We
done
have
the
to.
math on this?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
you said you're hoping, but you
Yeah.
have more than
Well, I'm
hope.
hoping, barring any unforeseen problems.
I just
should
see
be
in this
by-
paperwork I got, and I just got it last night, I see a lot of scenarios, but I don't see that one.
Yeah, it should be,
Projected
it was
growth
on,
or-
so there is a fact sheet on the website also that kind of just summarizes everything into a one-page document. And it should be by 2021.
Thank you.
Is there
When did
any,
you get in such a deficit? When did this happen?
This happened before I got here.
Somebody
Beginning
reported-
beginning in 2015, typically, departments have to have set aside by the end of June, correct me if I'm wrong, 20% of their budget to carry them through to November when we get assessments. That's so we can pay salaries, we can pay the cost of operations. Beginning in, as I'm just trying to recall what I've seen from the budget reports, 2014, 2015, they started to see they don't have that money. They might have $30,000. That's not enough to operate for, 5 months? Yeah, 5 months. Beginning in 2016 is actually when they realized a deficit, and it just went from there. And what was it from? It was from a number of things, and I'll summarize that when I go through this. But it was 2016 that they realized that we have a negative balance at the end of the year.
So definitely financial mismanagement. You don't balance the checkbook, you don't have the money.
And that's,
Maybe that's not on you, but.
and that's the point of this, because we have to come up with this. I was tasked with finding a solution, so.
any further comments? I guess we will entertain, yes, sir.
Rocky Harrelson, I live in Furman subdivision, just the other side of Winston. I'm past president of the homeowners association. We've looked at some of the proposals, but it's kind of general consensus. We understand that you have to be able to pay your bills. It seemed to quite a few of our folks who are retired and on fixed incomes that the percent increase was quite large, but after sitting and listening, I understand where you're going. The Winston dump site, we're looking at, and we would suggest the commission look at hard, is some kind of gate and key system. We know it may be just a little more expensive, but quite frankly, from a safety issue, when you're pulling out of the site especially, the bridge and the highway, you have to pay attention. And it's not that long if you get folks backed up before the whole